Welcome to the Westchester Pop. I'm joined by a very special guest.
I don't even know if I'm contractually allowed to be here, but I am. So we'll find out. We'll find out soon enough.
We're going to find out. I'm, of course, talking to my good buddy, Coach.
Yes.
From The Peak.
Yes, from 107.1 The Peak. Thank you for having me.
Thanks for joining me.
I have to say, this is the very first podcast I've ever been on.
Is
Believe
that
it or
true?
not, it probably is hard to believe.
That is hard to believe.
But, you know, people have invited me.
Yeah.
Typically, people I don't know.
Okay.
Like a bank teller will say, like as if they're doing me the favor, you should come on my podcast.
Right.
And, you know, I'm like, that's okay.
The
But
bank
John, I
teller
like.
podcast?
John's a good dude, and I know John. And
Sure.
that's why this all makes sense. And, you know, I'm happy to be here.
Well, thank you. And please, lots of water with lemon after this because I appreciate you using your voice after.
Oh, yes. My voice is my instrument, not to sound too...
Yes, please.
What's the word? I don't. Can you swear on here? I'm not even sure.
Yes, please.
Well, not to sound too douchey, but my
That's
voice
not
is
really
my
a
instrument.
curse.
Yeah, that's true. I just want to be... Well, I am extra
You
careful.
have to be careful.
I'm extra careful because on the radio, you know, it is a family show that I do, I guess.
I will curse enough for both of us
Okay,
on the
good.
podcast.
Good.
So let's start at the very beginning.
Yes.
Like, was this always a career path? Was like they were a little Chris, right? Chris is
Yes.
your name. Okay. There's no big mystery. It's on the website.
It is on the website.
No
I don't
big-
think I've ever quite said it on the air, but it is on the website, so
Okay,
you're more than
so-
welcome. Yeah.
So you obviously didn't grow up, Coach.
No.
And we can go into a little bit of the mystery behind
Sure.
Coach. But like, was this always the career path? Did you grow up like, look, I wanted to be like a ring announcer, like for WWF? And
That'd be cool.
wouldn't that be a
Yeah.
great gig?
I would love to be a bad guy wrestler in the worst way. You
Yeah.
know, and that's one of the things we have in common. Is I love pro wrestling.
Yeah.
I'd love to be a bad guy wrestler, or maybe even just the announcer would be good too. Just throwing that out. Put that out there in the universe.
I mean, listen,
A manager, like
I-
Bobby the Brain Heenan or something like that.
listen. Fun fact:
Yes.
I was a ring announcer for an indie show
Okay.
at one point in my life, and my ring announcer, a buddy of mine, was a promoter for an indie wrestling organization,
Yeah.
quote unquote, and he said, "Would you like to do the commentating?" And I said, "Sure." By the way, didn't know this was filmed, so I actually have the DVD.
Oh, you have it
of
on
this.
tape.
Yeah,
Wow.
and I
Proof.
and I know now how horrible I was. I basically was a combination of Tony Schiavone, if you know, like
Yeah.
old school
Yeah, yeah,
WCW,
yeah.
and
I
Jim
think he's on the air now,
Ross.
isn't he? Tony Schiavone's doing.
Oh, he's on
the other one.
AEW.
AEW, yeah.
And Jim Ross, but taking all of the cliched
Sure.
lines,
It's a
that
real
they
barn
did-
burner.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
like, oh my goodness, and like, oh, it was the worst.
Yeah.
But I will say this: I had an incredible name,
Oh, what was your on air? What was your name? Your called name, if you will.
Johnny Bar Mitzvah.
Johnny Bar.
I don't know where I got it, but I was in a full
Johnny
suit.
Bar Mitzvah.
Johnny
Okay.
Bar Mitzvah.
Johnny Bar Mitzvah.
That was
not
it.
bad. Not bad.
Yeah.
I could see
What
that.
would yours be? Coach. I
I'd
guess.
probably just be Coach. Yeah.
But there was a coach.
it's kind of my brand. That's right. There was a coach who was a wrestling
Jonathan
announcer.
Coachman.
Yes, Jonathan Coachman. I think I saw him at the gym one time when I lived in Stanford.
Did you?
Yeah.
That's about right. Yeah.
Yeah. It
Based in
tracks.
Stanford.
It tracks.
So you would probably have to choose a different name.
That's true. I don't know. A wrestling, boy, you put me on the spot. I haven't even. I have to think about that.
Yeah.
You gotta come up with a good one.
Let's circle back.
Okay.
So
So
So tell me, like, did you have the radio on, and were you like doing this? Were you like,
yeah,
what was Little Coach
I
like?
think I always loved radio. I always loved listening to the radio. I was a big fan of Howard, but I always appreciated Howard kind of differently than most people. At the time, you know, yes, he's got naked girls on the radio, but that never, and it was fun, but that was never really what I enjoyed most about Howard. I think the genius, to me, of Howard Stern was in the conversation he would have with Robin and Fred and his interview skills, right? So my favorite part of Howard Stern was the last hour where Robin would be reading him the news, and they would just kind of, it's like friends at the breakfast table. and I would always that was always my favorite part of the radio of Howard Stern show. So that's kind of what I try to do on my show now. You know, we play a lot of music, so we don't have like a long form talk. But, you know, previously I had Kristen Marks, who was my newswoman. Now I have Yaz, who's great, who lives right here in Mamaroneck, and she's great. She's local. And so, you know, there's really no set structure when we start to talk to each other. We kind of know a topic, but then we don't, like, I never say, like, okay, you're going to set me up with this joke, but that just doesn't happen. And, you know, I want it to be really organic, much like Howard and Robin were, and that's why Howard is the greatest of all time. It has nothing to do. There were plenty of people with naked women on the radio, but there was only one Howard Stern who's making gobs of money, and there's a reason for that. And it's because the guy's a genius. And that's what I always... So I always loved... listening to the radio. I always loved music, and I guess without knowing it, I was kind of into radio, you know, geared for this career because, you know, in high school I was the CD burner guy. So like,
were you the LimeWire guy?
Yeah, yeah. So we were there. People would be like, "Hey, man, make me a mix for my limo for prom night." Okay, here you go. Like, I know what this guy likes. Here's what you need. Here's what you need, and you know. So I was always kind of into the music, showing people new music and getting into the scene and all that. So going to live shows and all that.
What about like your voice? Because like you have a voice for radio too. Like did you know that?
I don't think I have a great voice, but I think
well, you project it well though.
I do, yeah. Like in a big, I noticed from an early age I did notice that I was a very good public speaker, which I guess helps in radio. Although a lot of people think radio is being comfortable in front of a lot of people, but which I am, but that's not necessarily what it is. To me, radio, you're in a room by yourself, but you're not talking to thousands of people. And you're in my head, when I'm on the air, I'm talking to one guy. And he's in his car driving to work, and I'm in the back seat, and we're just hanging out, man, talking about the day's topics. Hey, man, did you see that game last night? Whatever it is, you know. So that's the mental image I have in my head when I'm sitting in that room by myself or with Yaz when she comes in. And, you know, so that's kind of the... So most radio people you meet are not good in front of a large group of people, and people get surprised. Most of the people I know, Jimmy Fink is good, but most of the people I know, the radio guys could be a little shy and awkward in front of a large group of people, and people are kind of taken aback by that. But that's why, because you're in a room by yourself. But yeah, so I guess from an early age, I was always really comfortable speaking in front of people. I was into music. I was sharing all this music, and I loved listening to the radio. And Howard Stern, the last hour of Howard Stern was always my favorite. So I guess it all kind of adds up.
It all connects.
Right?
Yeah. So were you the kind? Because I was and I still am to a certain degree. Were you the kind of kid or young adult where like you were trying to discover new music?
Yeah.
And were you trying to get your friends and other people like to hear
100%.
it? Yeah.
Yeah. Like
Same.
even stuff that, you know, as you discover new music, it was old music. Like the first time you discovered Led Zeppelin, you know, I'm 15, it's the 90s, but they were new to me. Or
Right.
I remember sitting, I loved Metallica. You know, I was a metalhead for a while. I guess you're always a little bit of a metalhead, right?
I love that you're saying that you're wearing a leather jacket.
Yeah, that's right. This is my this is my metalhead cosplay these days.
You knew I was going to ask this question.
But no, so like I remember, like, you know, I would always be way more into it than the average person. Like I would be reading lyrics, you know, when it was on CD.
Yep.
I'd take the CD out, and I remember like Metallica, the "And Justice for All" album. The song "And Justice for All" is about, you know, political corruption and stuff like that. And I just remember thinking like, gee, that's weird. They think the courts are corrupt. No way.
Right.
These guys are crazy.
Yep.
You know. But it kind of opens your eyes, like, yeah, man, there's a whole world out there, and what they're singing about. So I like would study the music, and I would be really into it. Yeah.
Yeah, I would do the same thing with like the lyric sheet, and I would actually go along, and then there would be like these abstract lyrics, and I would just be listening over and over again and being like, "What the fuck is this about?"
Right,
and just trying to figure it out. And
yeah, I agree. I had that same curiosity. Yeah.
So was there an album or even a song? I always, and it's so funny because like so much is made about Nevermind. I think it's even in your bio for
Well, it's not Nevermind. It's Nirvana, definitely.
Nirvana in general, right?
For me, it was. I believe it or not, Nirvana was maybe, or the Nevermind was probably
Was
like
it early?
a little bit early, like 2 years.
Okay.
So my first
Was
now
it unplugged for you?
it was unplugged for me. So
Okay.
like all my, but I listened to Nirvana through all
Yeah.
like friends' older brothers
Yep.
would be all into it, and I remember loving it. And I would watch the music video on MTV.
Yeah.
So I loved Nirvana, but I
Right.
didn't have a stereo. I didn't have, I was still
Sure.
kind of coming into my own.
Sure.
So I remember the first stereo I bought, I saved up $100, $120, whatever it was.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
It's a 3 CD changer. And I remember bringing my grandmother. Back in those days, do you remember this? On Wednesdays, senior citizens would get a discount at most places. I don't know if
Okay.
they still do that, but
I didn't-
every Wednesdays
I'm
was
gonna
like
take your
senior
word
discount
for it.
day.
I don't remember that.
And we went down
and
to
the world is way too cynical now. I would imagine senior
Yeah.
citizens get screwed out of everything
So
right now.
So
Yeah.
my grandmother took me down to Caldor in Port Chester.
Okay.
Picked out the stereo I wanted,
Okay.
and then she's like, "Well, you need a CD. You're gonna need a CD. Go pick out a CD." And sure enough, there was the big display, Nirvana Unplugged.
Okay.
Still wore that thing out. Still listened to it.
Yep.
Some
of the best covers ever.
Ever. Right. It's the best
Like,
Unplugged
hands
ever.
down. Yep.
Right. And so yeah, and then since then I just was hooked. I just needed to acquire more music.
So
and
is
more
that
albums.
was that a game changer for you? Because for me, it's funny because so much is made like music changed with Nevermind, and like I've had some people, younger people, say like, "Was it true?" And it's like, "Yeah, it actually was."
I mean, I think the '80s stuff. It had there. You knew it was time for a change.
Yeah.
And I think it was like, well, what's it gonna be?
Mm-hmm.
And then boom, this thing came. So I wouldn't say it wasn't like the '80s were at their height, and all of a sudden it was
Sure.
the '80s had kind of, you saw like Warrant and like Cherry Pie,
Sure.
and like, okay, I think we're done with this.
right. There's only so much you could take of Warren. Yeah.
Tesla, the band, not the car.
Right.
Is the problem, right?
Right.
Wait, that was a band. That was the band, right? Tesla.
Signs, right? Was it
I
Tesla?
forget. I see. I don't. It doesn't even matter.
I feel like I'm correct.
These are
But I'm going to pretend that I'm not.
Okay, you could be.
But I
sure.
think I'm right.
I don't-
Tesla. They did a cover of the song "Signs."
Oh, the Signs. Yes.
Right?
No,
Yeah.
that was them. Yeah.
Yeah.
This was all like in the early '90s, but they were still '80s bands, and you're like, well, what's this? And then boom, Seattle.
Yeah.
Nevermind.
Yep.
Pearl Jam, Soundgarden.
Yep.
Could have been any one of those bands, but it happened to be Nevermind, and I'm
Right.
okay with that.
So I bought 2 singles. I'll age
Oh, yeah.
myself. I don't care.
Yeah, I used to buy those all the time. Yeah.
One bus ride to Central Avenue. 2 singles I bought.
Yeah.
One was "Tears in Heaven" by Eric Clapton.
Yeah.
And
I have an unpopular opinion about that song, but
Okay. And the
I
other
think it's
one,
a terrible song. That's my unpopular opinion.
That's
I
fine.
can't stand that.
That's fine.
I know it's
There's
terrible.
people-
Because it's about his kid. I get it.
There's people 25 years ago who are going to be pissed at this
You could
comment
send
now.
you could send your hate mail to the Peak Studio.
You
Studio
could-
at 1071thepeak.com.
You can send it 25 years ago. It's longer than that. And then the other one was "Smells Like Teen Spirit."
Yeah.
And I literally remember listening to "Tears in Heaven" once, and listening to "Smells Like Teen Spirit," and the B-side was territorial pissings.
Yeah, I think so.
I think that's
It might have been it. Yeah.
On a loop.
Yeah.
And literally my music taste changed on that bus ride.
Yeah. I remember seeing the video for Nirvana's "Smells Like Teen Spirit."
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if it was the first time I saw it, but I remember sitting there. I had an aunt who was very young. She was probably like in high school at the time. She was the '80s. Her hair was done.
Yeah.
Poison, all those Winger, all those bad
Sure.
'80s bands, right?
Sure.
I remember seeing the Nirvana video coming on, and I was still pretty young. And I was like, whoa, that's like the coolest thing I ever saw. And she was just like, I don't get it. And I thought, bam, there's your generational divide.
That was it. Boom.
There's your generational divide.
Does she still
right
have
there.
big hair?
What's that?
Does she still have big hair?
No, that's long gone. But
Okay. So how did you get to radio? I mean, and the evolution of Coach and
Yes.
getting that name and all that. Like, how do you end up here?
The evolution of Coach. That's gonna be like
That should be your
my biography.
I'll write the
I think
foreword
so.
for you.
Thank you. Yeah, you could.
Yeah.
So it was kind of a lot of it is by chance.
Yeah.
You know, but I always like to say that nothing is really left to chance if you're prepared and ready for the moment.
Yeah.
So, and I'll explain what I mean. So, I didn't really know, I wasn't a great student. I think I was really smart, but I didn't really care about school.
Where'd you go? Portchester?
I went to Stepinac High School, Stepinac Crusaders,
Okay.
class of 2001.
Okay.
Okay, so I had a fine time in high school, but I just was like, I think it was very frustrating for teachers because I was like really smart kid that did not try at all.
Okay.
And I think they're just like, you know, if I hand a paper in 2 weeks late, like, okay, they would pull me aside and say, like, you got like a C on this, but this is the best paper in the class. Like, and I think they wanted to choke me. So went to WCC, which is a great place to go, not just for an education, but to figure it out.
Okay.
Westchester Community College really is a great place to figure it out because I never even graduated from Westchester Community College, but I figured it out there. So WCC had a radio station in the basement, and I remember seeing a couple of guys I knew from high school. I didn't know them very well in high school, but I bumped into them, believe it or not, I bumped into them at Ozfest.
Okay.
And they were like, and they told me about the radio station, you should come join. And I was like, okay. So I remember going back that semester and going down to the basement of the Student Center and, started at the college radio station. And lo and behold, about a year later, the Peak opened up in Valhalla, or North White Plains, like pretty close by, about 5 minutes away. My buddy Mike Batiste, who I was close friends with, still am, at the radio station. He was the first one to go, literally knocked on the door the day they opened. Chris Herman was there, stressing out, trying to launch this radio station. And about a month later, Mikey called me because, quote, he needed somebody normal.
Boy, were
Jokes
they wrong.
on them. And he said, if you want to intern here, it's kind of cool right now. And, it would just help launch the radio station, literally like putting songs into a computer system that we would use. And then my philosophy was just whatever they needed me to do, I would do it. So they needed a van driver guy. I could drive. I have a license. I'll drive the van. The whole time, I remember still on the air at college radio every week doing radio shows. And I got a part-time job working for Caroline Corley, the great Caroline Corley, at a place called RCS, which is a radio software company, so kind of in the business. She was on the air part-time, but she was been a pro for 20 years at that time. So Caroline would critique my tapes every week and say, this is what I need to work on.
So at this point, you're all in. This is
Well, not really, because it's all part time still. I'm still figuring it out.
Okay.
Early 20s. I'm in my early 20s. My dad owns an auto body shop, so I would start working there.
Okay.
Still living at home.
Okay.
So finally, a part time on air slot opened up, and on the weekends. And Caroline said, "Hey, play your tape for Chris Herman. I think you could pull it off. I think you're good enough to do part time now." And sure enough, I did. So I got like Saturday night was my regular shift. And then before you know it, again, philosophy was, and Caroline's advice to me was always to make yourself as valuable as possible. So anytime they needed to fill in, yep, I can do that. I remember having eye surgery one day, but they needed to fill in for the evening show, and I had my father drive me to the radio station, and he sat in the corner, and I did the evening radio show with one eye and an eye patch like this. It was in severe pain. It was definitely a huge mistake. But, whatever they needed. And then eventually Caroline would go on vacation. Caroline eventually got the morning show, and she would go on vacation. I'd fill in for them. I'd fill in for her. I'd fill in for Jimmy Fink, whatever they needed. And then Caroline one day, it was about 11 and a half years ago. She did her show. She went home, and she collapsed on her front porch. And this is where it gets heavy. And she died very suddenly. So you know, it was all very shocking. She was only 52 years old, and enter coach, and it was not comfortable to start.
I bet.
It was not comfortable to start. It was very awkward. And if I ever had a morning show, she would have been the first person I go to for advice, so I didn't have that. And yeah, it was weird. And during that time, there were people who would come up to me and be like, "How is everything? Are you okay?" Like they look at me like, "Are you like, oh man, this poor guy."
Yeah.
But over time, you know, I settled in, and eventually we got here. And here I am, 11 and a half years later. And I think Caroline would be really happy for me and proud. And I think if she were to hand select somebody to take her place, it'd be me. So it was actually a really eerie conversation with Caroline about a month before she passed. And I happened to bump into her at the studio on a weekend when she's never there. And she said, you know, you're getting really good on the air. I'm really proud of you. And then she said, jokingly, don't go taking my job. And, we laughed about it. And sure enough, a month later, it's very eerie, but sure enough, a month later, I started the morning show.
She was pretty much your mentor, no?
Oh, 100%. Yeah. 100%. She taught me how to. She kind of said, you know, this could be a career for you if you just, you know, start taking it serious. She got me to start taking it seriously.
Okay.
You know, or the college radio, you go on, and you're like, just talk. You know, you don't know what's going on.
Yeah.
She's like, this is terrible.
Yeah.
She saw some talent.
Yeah.
She's like, this is terrible. You got to structure. She told me how to structure things and really focus on it, and I owe a lot to her.
So you were basically on the fence, though, still, before this whole experience.
Yeah,
wow.
yeah. But I always had the fallback.
I didn't know that there was a connection, because I know that you passed. I never knew. I never knew there was a connection.
Yeah, we were really tight. You know, so yeah, she is missed, and but I do know for a fact somebody last year actually was at Sleepy Hollow Music Festival. Somebody came up to me and said that they had spoken to Caroline a week before. And there was a lot of things going on with her and management at the time, believe it or not. And she thought they weren't going to get rid of her, but she thought they might be getting rid of her.
Okay.
And her friend said to her, well, they can't get rid of you. Who would they replace you with? And she goes, you know, my friend Coach is like, and this all I just found out last year.
Wow.
She's like, you know, my friend Coach, like he's young, he's really good, and he could totally do it. And you know, it brings a tear to my eye. But
wow.
Because now it's like, not that I doubted it, but it's confirmed. Like she was really proud of me, and you know, wanted me to do it. So it was good. It was cool.
The world is funny.
It's crazy how
weird.
things work out. Life works out, man. But you know what? And a lot of people, like to come back to my point before, there's no such thing really as luck or chance, because to me, if I wasn't ready for a morning show, I would have lasted, you know, a couple of weeks until they found somebody and then be done. So you always have to kind of be ready for the moment.
Right.
And because I had been working nonstop all those hours and taking all the hours I could and getting all that experience, that's why I got the morning show.
Right.
You could say it was because Caroline passed, but
no,
I wouldn't have lasted. You know, I would have lasted a little bit to cover until they found somebody. So.
Yeah, you got to put in the work.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So why Coach? How did you come up with that nickname?
I can't get him to stop calling me Coach now. So
yeah,
I did actually coach.
Okay.
A CYO basketball when I was in college.
Okay.
In Port Chester, my hometown, where I love it, and it was at Corpus Christi Church, and I helped a friend coach a friend's father coach his little brother's team for a few years because I enjoyed it. And then, you know, the little brother moved on. And then they approached me, and they're like, you know, they would always approach me with, like, the team that nobody wanted to coach.
Got it.
And I'd be like, well, you know, I don't really want to coach. And they'd be like, no, that's okay. We'll just cancel the season. They won't play. And, you know, and you're like fifth graders, you know what I mean?
Sure.
So I'm like, all right, I'll coach. So we lose every game.
But they get to play.
They lose every game. And then next year they'd be like, "So do you want to coach again?" I'd say, we lose every game." And they're like, "But the kids love you, the parents love you," and I'd be like, "But I'm a terrible coach." And they're like, "You know what? Don't worry, we'll just cancel the season. They won't play."
Right.
I'm like, okay.
So
all right, all right,
they
I will
guilt
coach.
you.
So yeah.
Yeah.
So then,
Either they don't play, or they play.
and they
play
lose every
terribly.
game.
Yeah, I got you.
So I would have I had a whistle on my keychain, and I'd go to college radio, and they started calling me coach.
Got it.
And then my college buddy got me the job at the Peak, and we had a Chris Herman.
Right.
So they started calling me coach. And then when the time came for me to be on the air, I asked Jimmy Fink, hey, should I be Chris or Chris Rodriguez or coach? And Jimmy just said, I'd stick with coach. I was like, all right, I guess I'm coach then.
And I mean, if anyone's going to know, it's going to be Jimmy.
Here we are
right?
Here we are over a decade later. Now I can't stop people from calling me coach. It's too late. My mom will call me coach sometimes.
Really?
I tell her to stop. Yeah.
Wow. Now, does she call you coach when you're in trouble?
No.
Or she just calls you coach?
She calls me coach because she thinks it's cute.
Okay. It could be worse, my friend.
It could be much worse. That's why I'm all for it. And it also helps me. I'm terrible at remembering people and faces and names and how I know them. So if you call me coach, I know, like, okay, I probably know this person from the radio aspect of my life. If you're calling me Chris, I know you from, like, high school or something.
Right,
you
right.
know.
So let me ask you, so how has the Peak changed throughout the years? And also, like, I mean, you brought up Howard Stern, who I agree, and in my opinion, he's the best interviewer ever.
Yeah.
How has the Peak evolved? And also, like, were you ever nervous? Like, I mean, satellite is just king, and Spotify is, and streaming services. Terrestrial radio is, scary right now.
It can be. I think our company is uniquely positioned for this, and this radio station is uniquely positioned to succeed in today's world. I think there's a lot of people running these big radio companies that just don't know how to compete in the new landscape. Mm-hmm. And I think for me, the way you would compete with Spotify and satellite, I think a lot of the big companies think that, well, it's no commercials. They have no commercials. That's their big advantage, right? Okay. So their idea is to play more songs in a row. They do away with the DJ, play as many songs in a row as you can. But you're never going to win that battle, right? Mm-hmm. You're always going to have to play some commercials. So to me, the way to compete is, number one, you're local. I can tell you that Neil Young has got a secret show coming up at the Capitol Theater in Portchester, okay? Satellite can't do that.
Yep.
Spotify can't do that, okay? Also, the personalities can engage you. If you have engaging local personalities that are telling you information, we could tell you the new restaurant that opened in town. This is all, to me, is the advantage of a boutique local radio station like The Peak. We also could play some cool tunes, man. We could play, let's say it's Paul McCartney's birthday. I could play you something real deep and cool, and that'll knock your socks off that you haven't heard in a while, if ever. So there's that local connection, to me, is the advantage that radio stations have, that they don't always. They're always like doing away with the DJ is exactly the opposite. This is what you should be doing.
Yeah, I mean it's one of the last things that we have,
it's
right?
The best medium
of like the old school things, like from like recording your favorite song and
right.
Like kids today and adults today don't know what it's like to record a song or wait for a song to come on
and then hit record
or have a DJ talk over or intro even the frustration of having a DJ talk over the intro is part of it that makes it so great.
Yeah, that's why we don't do too much of that.
But you know what I'm talking about, though, right? It's part of it.
Yeah.
But I do get it. Like, it's part of just what makes everything so great.
Yeah, I think with radio is something you're turning on because you want to be part of something. You want to be part of a conversation. Whereas Spotify, whatever, you're tuning out. You don't want to be bothered with anything. Radio is more, it's a shared experience. It's a communal thing. I think it's the best medium. I love it. And I think there is, just remember, everywhere you have Spotify, you got your local radio station. We're online. We're on your phone. We have apps. We're on your Alexa machine, what do you call those? It's an Alexa machine. I don't know, smart speaker,
Echo Dot.
Echo Dot. We're on all of them.
I just threw that out.
We're on all of them,
Right.
man. We're everywhere they are, we are, and we're in your car for free too. So,
But and then in terms of the station itself, because
Yeah.
you guys have changed with your programming, right?
a
Like in
little bit.
terms of like.
well, I think the only change really is you can't control the new music, trends.
Yeah, I
So
think
that's
I
gonna
think that's
change it
what
a
I'm
little
saying.
bit.
Like
Yeah,
I
yeah.
think what I've noticed, and again, yeah, maybe that is the musical
I
landscape.
think that's what a lot of people hear when they hear like we've changed. It's like for a minute there, I want to say 5 to 8 years ago, there was a lot of stomping and clapping new music, like a, like Mumford
you
and
mean
Sons
like the
ish.
Mumford and the
Yeah,
Lumineers?
there was like a million of those bands.
and then there was like, yeah,
So there are these little
there's
these little
spurts.
trends of new
Lumineers
music.
have a new album though. You
And-
guys will probably be playing.
Oh, we're
some.
playing the heck of it. It
Yeah.
sounds great too.
It
sounds
does.
a really good
It
album.
does.
So, so a lot of people when they hear like, "Oh, you guys changed," it's really just like the trends and the new because we play new music and
Yeah.
and I'm like, "Hey, we're just playing you what's out there.
Yeah.
I can't control where it's going. Like if there's a brief period where it's not as good of new. Last year, I think was an awesome year.
Last year was
for new music
spectacular.
was fantastic.
Yeah.
So. I think that's kind of the biggest way we change. Otherwise, our mix is still pretty good. We play some deeper tracks.
You
different
think it's
decades.
still the same station, like musically mission based since when you guys first started?
Sure, mission based, sure.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. We want to introduce you to some new music. We want to play you some of the old stuff, and we don't want to play you, Born in the USA. We want to play you some deeper. Now, listen, you can't be scared to play the hits.
Sure.
You'll hear Roxanne every now and then, but
yeah,
we want to
but
play
I like
you.
the deeper cuts
Yeah.
that you guys get into.
Yeah, I played what I play from the Police, Canary in a Coal Mine the other day, which is one that's just a deeper track. That throw it in
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
there, why not? So, so that's our mission, really.
And you pepper in a lot of local talent.
Sometimes, yeah.
Which
We
is
try
a
to try to
nice-
help where we can. We are a commercial radio station, so it's a little harder. But whenever we can help out local bands, mention them, play them a little bit. Invite them out to live concerts, maybe as an opener or something. That's,
Yeah,
sure.
That was the next thing I was going to say. So, like, you obviously do not only play local acts from time to time, you're also out.
Yeah.
I mean, the Peak Van, which I've had you guys at.
yes.
I do way too many events, but so you're at your. Do you call it the Peak Van?
Yeah.
Not the street team. That's the cap.
The street team.
Is
Peak
it the street team?
Peak
Okay.
Fan.
So you guys are out at countless events, and then you do events. Like
Another advantage we have over Spotify.
Yeah.
Spotify's not putting on concerts in we have a concert coming up at Lake Street Dive for our birthday show in May. Spotify's not doing that. We do free concerts on the beach. I brought Noah Khan, who headlined 2 nights at Madison Square Garden here.
Yep.
He played for free at Rye Beach because we brought him there. Spotify can't.
And
do
that was
Yeah.
only like what 2 years
2
before
years
the
ago.
MSG.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Not even. It was like a year and a half.
Yeah.
So that's another benefit. We're in your community. We're involved. So, and we have a
Right.
darn good radio station, I think.
Right. So where do you see the Peak going? Where do you go from here?
That's a good question.
More of the same, or do you evolve? Not, I mean, you're totally fine. Stay in your lane. But like, if you,
Yeah.
where do you see yourself?
Um,
That sounded like when people say "stay in your lane."
Yeah.
That actually is a mean thing to say. But I meant like
I've been
Do you know
told
what
that
I
in a
mean?
mean way,
But
not by you.
that
but
was
by
a
other people.
that was meant as a charming thing.
Yes.
Like,
yes.
by all means, please
Yes.
stay where you are.
Yeah.
But where do you see yourself going? Stay in your lane, coach.
Well, Jimmy Fink and Chris Herman, they're good. I don't want to, say this out loud. Maybe they will watch this, but they're getting a little older.
Yeah.
And it will be a time. And I am Chris Herman's assistant. Chris Herman is the program director.
Yeah.
So I would probably take over for Chris Herman and steer the station in my direction. But there's not that much steering. First off, Chris taught me everything I know
Yeah.
about radio, so it's not going to be too much different than it is now. I think just community involvement and just keeping that going to me is the way to succeed. Keeping the community involvement and getting more personalities, like a lot like we have now. That's the way to compete against Spotify. That's it.
And more coaching sports.
No. I hung up those my whistle.
That's it?
Oh, I hung my whistle a long time ago. Yeah.
Because I'm coaching Little
Once I
League.
got
You can
full-
join me anytime you want.
No. Yeah, no. I'll be a life coach. If you want to hire me for a life coach, I will coach.
gosh.
I will coach you. I've been told to give good advice, but I don't.
So give me some advice.
Give you some advice.
Yeah, let's see.
I think I gave you some advice one time.
What was it?
I said you should write more.
I should write more.
See, there you go.
I think you did.
Am I wrong?
I think you're
I
right.
think you're writing. I think you're a prolific writer, John. You're also a very good speaker, obviously, but I like your writing.
I think you did.
I like
think
writing
you did give me that advice. Thank you. When you probably gave me that when you used to pass my house during
I think
COVID.
it wasn't that long ago. You were still writing back then.
Was
I think you should write more.
I should write more.
Yes. This is fine. Don't get me wrong.
But
I want to see more John Chapman writing. That's what I want to see out of you. Okay, now get out of here. Get in the game. Get out there.
I'll transcribe this interview.
That's all the writing you need.
That's it. That's
Can't
all.
AI do that now? I don't know. Sorry. But AI can't write like you. I can tell you that.
I'll tell you, AI is the wave of the future. Not
Right.
really.
No, I think
Fuck
we'll
it. You
be
gotta
just
be-
fine.
There's only so much you can
I
do.
think we'll be just fine.
Yeah.
I
Thanks,
do.
Coach.
No problem. But yeah, more writing from John Chapman in 2025. Let's do that.
All right.
Let's get on that. All right.
Cool, dude.
All right. Yeah.